Okay, we are going live. We're going live. Sorry for the delay. Hope that the audio is coming through a-okay and that everyone here is doing well. They're having a good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you are at. And the audio does seem to be coming through just fine. So that is fantastic. We already got some comments here. Let me catch up with this. We might be able to get some other members of the harem in here. We got Jake Brent saying the preview, LOL. Oh, yeah. Guy says, whoa, now, this thumbnail. Indeed. Art says Des is doing her best. I had a long impression for Azzy. And Stormcrow says, Azzy, Angel, please forgive me. Uh, Hi there, Jake Branch. Great to have you here. And everyone else who climbs aboard, say, hold on a sec here. I am going to be sending out the message to the rest of the harem. We'll see if anyone else is able to come and join me. One of the reasons why we're getting started late is because we've got the Tucson Festival of Books tomorrow. I have been getting myself ready, and Nathan and his family came down to Tucson to join in on the fun, to visit a little bit. So we just came out of doing dinner, and I also had to clean Miku Lyrian to get her ready for tomorrow. For those who do not know, Miku Lyrian is the main character in my book Tumble Teller, and I happen to have a nice, sweet plush version of her that I brought to the Renaissance Festival last weekend for kids to check out, for people to pet. It was really fun, but she got dirty, really dirty. So I've been cleaning her, getting her ready for tomorrow for another round of head pats and making people gush at just how cute a dragon can be. So that is that's what I've been up to, and that is why we're a little bit late. But indeed, tonight we're going to have some fun with talking about the trope of the girl next door. And I just have to say that when I originally tackled this particular trope for like in Deltarune, the perspective that's attached to it and everything, I did it pre chapter 3, and I just gotta be honest. Chapter 4 completely changed my perspective on what Toby Fox is doing with the trope of the girl next door. Yeah, Susie being the girl next door, that was my claim. I still stand by that, and I will show why Susie is still the girl next door, but also Noelle, who I said, yeah, she is at first presented as if she's the girl next door, but then she ceases to be. No, chapter 4 is like, sorry everyone, she is the girl next door, and in the worst way possible. Not that she's a bad character, but rather what the story itself is doing to her. And then on top of that, Des is also set up as the girl next door, and in a way even higher and above what has been done with Noelle and Susie. So that's going to be the angle of the conversation, as well as setting us up to have yet again another conversation about tropes in storytelling. And I think it's kind of good to have an in-depth conversation of a particular trope, and just see how a particular artist or particular writer takes an idea and just runs with it, and where that eventually ends up. Yes, more girl next door breakdown. Woo! And thank you, Guy. I do intend to have some fun at the Festival of Books. I says, I swear I'm not late. No, this time I'm the one who's late here, ISO. So don't you worry. Also, I'm going to see if I can grab up some pictures from today, so that way I can show you guys kind of what is all what has all been going on. Let's see here. Trying to get stuff is just sometimes so difficult. Aha, there we are. Let's see if I can download this picture. Excellent. And then we'll see if I can upload it, and I'll show you guys from me signing in today. Also, I'll actually be here in just a little bit. I'll be sharing some really great news from one of our members over on Discord. I wonder what happens next. Who just published a book, and I will have some details about that for you all in just a moment. So I hope that I hope that you guys will do him the honors and check it on out. And there you go. You get to see. Look at them pearly whites. I know. I try to take good care of my teeth. I am prone to cavities, so. And I'm one of those people who does the full mouth smile kind of stuff, or weird wackiness. Anywho's, there you go. There's my ugly mug. Let's get back to Deltarune there. So before we dive into a deep conversation about tropes and everything, is there, let's see here, anything else that people wish to bring up? Also, it low key gives me a little bit of time to quickly grab up the info that I need to share with you guys about this newly published book, and give you all the chance to check it out, because it is awesome. Whenever anyone has had the chance to finally publish a book, we will try to make this known to the masses. Alrighty. Draw the Line, Blue Origins. That's the name of the book. Was that the Lars face reveal? Yes, indeed it was. It was the Lars face reveal. Yes, a round of applause to I Wonder What's Next. Say anyone who's able to publish a book, that is just absolutely Mr. Backwards Cap himself. Yeah, but I'm not wearing my hat in that picture. Let's see here. Why can't I bring it up? Where is it? Where is that book cover? Let me try this again. Oh, okay. That is why. Because it did not immediately take to the file type. This is one of those issues when it comes to, you know what? Rather than, I'm going to simplify this. We're just going to simplify this. I'm going to grab up that. I'm going to open up the web page so that way people can see the page for the book, and then I will later on post the link in the description of this stream so that way people can go and check out the book. Lars smiles wider than me. You know, if I unleash the full laugh that sometimes comes out of me. If any of you have watched Legends of Evantris and seen Mace laugh, that is me when I absolutely cut loose. I am actually a far more restrained person than that I sometimes let on. But let me quickly share my screen here. Alrighty then. Yes, we're going to do the whole thing. We're going to do the entire screen. We're going to get that. We're going to get that eternal swirl. And all right, there we go. We got the eternal swirl going on, and here is the book. So draw the line. Blue origins. Or sorry, not blue oranges. The blue oranges would be interesting. If it's blue, is it still an orange? Food for thought. But draw the line. Blue Origins by Owen D. Michael, Jay Broadside, and Annette Olivier. So here is the site that you can get it at. And I will say is I've at least had a slight hand in the work of like presenting this book. Haven't yet read it, and I just recently got to see what the cover art looks like and everything. But here we go. I'm not starting just a movement. I'm starting a revolution. That was supposed to be a simple trip. What was supposed to be a simple trip to find her brother became the moment that changed the world. When Julie escapes her home isle and arrives in the neon-drenched sprawl of Onyx City, she has only one goal: find her brother Makoto, who vanished 12 years ago. But the city is a high-tech metropolis held in the iron grip of the Robin Corporation, where every home and transit line is fueled by the ancient volatile energy of Phoenixites. Julie's search for the truth leads her into a gritty underworld of corporate conspiracies and the Thorn Weaver crime syndicates. When a high-stakes expedition into the Phoenixite mines goes catastrophic, she becomes infused with the same unique and volatile power that courses through the city. Now a survivor with extraordinary powers, Julie must transform from a runaway into the defiant leader of the Skyrunners. Alongside a team of outcasts, she commandeers the advanced Midnight Voyager train to serve as a mobile base, taking the fight directly to those who rule from the shadows. In a city that needs saving, Julie is done running. She is ready to dismantle an empire, to reclaim her family and her freedom. So, there you have it. Again, I will post a link if anyone wishes to support this book. Then make sure they use that and read the book and give an honest review. Honest reviews are always the best for any author. And let's get out of this eternal swirl. There we go. Yeah, it's a great cover, and it's very, very exciting for anyone to have the chance to finally release their book. And I'm just happy that here at Camille's Harem, we have the opportunity to promote a story written by someone who has joined our Discord and has been a part of our community now for a while. So again, congratulations to I Wonder What's Next, and I hope that amazing things are what's coming next your way. All right, taking a good drink of water right there, and let's see here. Shall we then dive into the discussion of the girl next door? As so, then I say we should have our fun. All right, here's the slideshow for tonight. It's been a while since I last did a good old little slideshow. Hey, Wonder is here. Great to see you here, Wonder. And again, just absolutely congratulations on getting your book done. Give yourself a pat on the back. The statistics are incredible, how very few people actually ever get their books done. So it's always an incredible thing when someone manages to do it. But yeah, geez, December, get a room. Not as he's. Oh yeah, no. Des is here, and I love the expression up at the very top of the image of Azrael just being all like, "Why? like why? How did you get in here?" December holiday, the girl next door. All right, so what I have learned, especially when talking about a trope such as Mary Sue's, we've kind of gotten to the point where media literacy is going low. Let's be a little bit honest here, but also people know tropes, but they don't always necessarily know the name, or they hear a description for a trope and they're like, but does that really work with what I'm seeing, with what I'm reading, with what I'm watching? And so it's really, really good to boil it down and honestly talk about what a trope is. Like once you hear the name, okay, so we got the name, but really, really, what exactly is it? So The girl next door. And I know, like, I'll be honest, this slideshow is broke. The slideshow is breaking all the rules with loads and loads of text, but I'm going to keep it here so that way anyone who wants to kind of dive a little bit more into this. I mean, you already now have some of my stuff breaking this down. And you can go and you can read this and be like, oh, okay. So this is where we're coming from. Now, the girl next door. What exactly is this trope? This is a relatively new trope. I mean, you will still find, like, anciently the stories of, like, oh, the girl of my community. Of course I will marry her. But the idea of the girl next door is something that is far more American homegrown and comes out of the period of from the 1920s to the 1940s. This is because the 1920s to the 1940s was a particularly volatile time in American society. If you think it's bad right now, and yes, I just gassed up my car and wanted to die a little inside. So, like, it feels bad, but from the 1920s to the 1940s, this is when you have the Roaring Twenties. The Roaring Twenties were already actually a bad time for people in the Midwest because the Dust Bowl was already coming into being. Not only do you have World War One absolutely wrecking American agriculture for more than a decade, that quickly spirals on over into the Dust Bowl, which is kind of the final, like, kneecapping to America when the Great Depression kicks off. Not only are jobs suddenly just, like, vanishing, people are no longer getting hired. All of the bigwigs with all the money are now fleeing for the hills because the stock market has crashed. But you cannot even rely on the good, simple farmland communities, which had been touted as America's backbone for more than 100 years, going back to Thomas Jefferson, who said, prosperity is not in American cities, prosperity is in American farmlands. And so people, even though everyone wanted to go to the city if you wanted to make money, the countryside was romanticized as the heartland of America, the backbone of America. If you failed in the city, at least you could go back into the wilderness, and there you would find a place amongst your people. Well, now the Dust Bowl and economic problems and all that absolutely were wiping out the American farmland. You had young men abandoning home and trying to find work somewhere else. So suddenly communities are missing a lot of young men, which means that, oh my gosh, we won't have families anymore. Gah! And so part of so you have this interesting thing during the 1920s of this movement of do not leave home, stay at home, marry your sweetheart next door. If you don't have a sweetheart, there's a beautiful girl next door waiting for you. She's kind, loyal, reliable, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's capable. Don't go to the cities. Do not go looking for those foreign women or those sexy city women who are just full of lust and corruption. Oh no, good Christian boy. Thou shalt not go to the city. Thou shalt stay home in the community. And there you will marry, and the wife will make you the man that you're supposed to be. This mentality was strong. Very, very strong. So much so that it became incorporated into media, into cinema, into books. And sure, again, the idea of kind of marrying your sweetheart next door or the cute town girl, that idea had already been around for a long time, but it now took on a completely different form in that no, you will stay in your community because the girl of your dreams is literally your next door neighbor or your childhood friend. So don't go to the big city, do not abandon your community, marry the girl next door. That is where this comes from, and it became even more popularized as you go into the 1930s. And the 1930s, at the height of the Great Depression, again, communities just being blasted, there was this romanticized idea that if you stayed and built a family, a good, wholesome family in your community, you would do well. You see stuff like this in Isn't It a Wonderful Life? Like, in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, which plays deeply into what's going on in the Great Depression, our main man marries the girl next door. So you've got, and then he becomes the hero of the town, building a strong family and a strong pillar within the community, in large part thanks to his wife. This also became even more popular when young men were enlisted into the American military to go fight overseas against the Japanese and against the Nazis. And it was, now you're going to fight for that girl next door. You will do it. And this, again, this was just so insanely highly popularized because it was a way to try to impress upon young men to stay in their communities. And it was so prevalent over the course of 3 decades that it just became ingrained in the psyche. And because it was in very popular movies for a very long time, it just became a part of things. And people ran with it because there's something endearing about this concept. It's very similar to what you if you watch anime, the whole thing about your childhood friend. Do you marry your child? Are you going to get together with your childhood friend? Are you going to marry your childhood friend? That particular trope in anime, that, like, the American version of the girl next door, is basically the same thing, just taken in a way to an even more idealized extreme. And yes, TV account, this is where this particular trope comes from. And real quick, does the character in Forrest Gump count as this trope, albeit utilized in a different way? Guy, yes. So Jenny, I may not be a smart man, but I do know what love is. Uh, Jenny is the girl next door, and we can actually talk about that a little bit more, about how the movie Forrest Gump takes this trope and goes in a very different direction with it. And there's an interesting commentary we have there. I think we can definitely have that conversation, because that's kind of an important one to have. How tropes are utilized, the evolution of a trope, which we'll get into with talking about Des and even Susie being the girl next door. The guy says tropes have always remained the same. They just inherit different monikers each generation. Yes and no. Like the soul of the trope usually remains the same, but as we're going to get into with this particular topic, it's changed. And the changes may be subtle sometimes, but then they end up having some profound consequences. So we'll get into that. Don't you worry right there. And also wonder, it's great that you were working on this book for 5 years and finally got it done. Yes, that is some great dedication. And we got Masked Crusader. Hello there. Well, hello to you, Masked Crusader. Great to have you here. All right. Now, just a little bit more before we move on to the next slide. So the girl next door, again, is stereotypically, and I have to stress stereotypically, because this trope has begun to evolve somewhat. Stereotypically, the girl next door is meant to be down to earth. She's relatable. She's a sweet gal who any guy would be lucky to have. She's reliable, loyal, smart, and pretty, but this is important. For the original trope of the girl next door, she's never sexy. That is very important to stress, because, again, the idea was that young men were getting pulled to the cities or elsewhere, not just because of economic reasons, but because, oh my, those foreign women, those city women, so sensual, so lust-filled. No, none of that. None of that sexy and whatnot. You want a gal who can wear her Sunday dress just right. You want a gal who wears her jeans just right. You want a gal who is beautiful because of who she is on the inside and not the way that she looks. That is important to the original trope. This is where things have actually changed a little bit over time, because nowadays the girl next door is actually usually portrayed as someone who's sexy but doesn't know it, which is different than just be pretty, like she's pretty but not sexy. And she is the one who the guy is supposed to realize at the end of the story is worth everything. And often, because of this, the girl next door exists as a support character to the main protagonist, and very rarely ever takes a lead in the story. It's important to understand that if you come across anyone who's prejudicial against the girl next door trope, it's because traditionally the girl next door trope is utilized as a way of making a girl look appealing, but making her more an object rather than a character within the story. So that's important to note. Good heavens, we can't have our women be too enticing. Do we? Yes, no enticing women around here. Not in our good Christian community. I mean, there's some Christian communities that have got some very sexy women, but that's another conversation altogether. Okay. Sermon says, Lars, by that logic, Azrael could be I'm hot, but I don't know. Considering how much everyone rides his nuts in hometown. I mean, yeah, Azrael is and we can definitely have this conversation as we get more into this about how, for instance, a guy like Azrael features into this story because Azrael is seen as the hometown hero. And we know that Caddy and Braddy are very interested in Azzy. And of course, we have strong hints that there was something special going on between him and Des. So, yeah, we've got some drama. And of course, then this begs the question, this is a classic hometown setting. And we're going to talk about this. Who then would be the person that a character like Azrael would end up with? And this actually begins to beg even a bigger question for characters like Chris and Noelle. Who, within a small town community, should they end up with? Toby Fox, even though the story of Deltarune is more about friendship, it is. For as much as I talk shipping on this channel, Deltarune is about friendship. The first and foremost. But Toby Fox is very much aware of the setting that he's using, of the characters that he's using, of the tropes and the archetypes that he's utilizing, and how that plays into prospects of romance. He knows this, and he utilizes it for various effects and in various ways. So, with that being said, let's actually talk about this here. What is Toby Fox trying to do with the girl next door trope? Because, as I'm going to argue, he's using it for 3 different characters, not just one, which is different. That's like, normally, if you have the girl next door, that is the girl of the community. The girl that every single guy would be happy to have. And yet, Toby Fox is presenting 3 different girls as the girl next door? Say what? So, Toby Fox is having some fun with this particular trope. The light world is centered on a rural small town community, which immediately evokes all kinds of thoughts that people have. Like immediately, if you think I'm setting a story within a small town, immediately you're beginning to think, okay, then small town, everyone knows everyone's business. There are the town gossips. There's the town hero, the town outcast. There's the town leaders who may either be really wonderful people or really horrible people, all depending on what's going on. Again, everyone knows everyone. It's a small class if for any sort of school, which means that like when it comes, for instance, to dating, you are like fish in the same tank. You are being set up to breed with one another. There's always going to be trauma, dirty secrets that people try to suppress. Great expectations on the next generation to carry on legacy or to escape the town. Immediately, you get all different kinds of expectations and beliefs about the use of a small town the moment you have it be the main setting of a story. Toby Fox knows this, so he's having some fun with it. Someone says, underrated ship. If things were normal and Gaster wasn't around, Birdley would get with Carol. That is a horrifying and awful thing, and no, it would not happen. You know what? If Carol would ever be unfaithful to Rudy, and Rudy sticks his neck out for her, then I would say it is better for Carol to have a millstone hung around her neck and thrown into the depths of the lake than to be paired off with anyone else. Just gonna say. A guy says, I forgot how unhinged the fan arts can get. Exactly. ISO, the best girl next door trope. Two sisters fighting for one guy. He ends up with their single mother. Oh, oof, oof. No. Oh, no. Oh, why, ISO? Why? Oh, actually, there is a story out there like that, and it is appalling to me. I have read it. It is oh, it is something else. Anyway, we're moving on from that. Yes, wonder. Oh lordy. Now then, so Toby is setting up three different girls to be the so-called girl next door, and each one has a slightly different play on the trope. Now, why is he doing this? He's doing it because he knows this is a way to subvert our expectations. Again, like if I so like I mean, I already listed out a bunch of stuff for a small town setting, but I want to hear from you guys in the chat, and I really do, so that way people can see, so you can see what I mean by this. I say small town community setting. What are immediately the things that pop into your mind about what you would encounter within this story? So, like, if I say we're going to have a story set in a small rural New England town setting, or set in a small, like, deep Louisiana or Mississippi town setting, or small town Southwest in the desert setting, like it's a small town community, but what immediately hits you of like, yeah, this would happen. I expect this. I expect that. What do you expect when you know that the story is set in a small town community? I want to hear your guys' thoughts there in the chat. I want to read them because again, I want us to be able to see what I want us to I'll be able to see like what I'm saying right here. Their expectations with this trope. And Toby knows them. So let's get the illustration going here. Stormgirl says, "Why you settle for the lesser daughters when the prime woman is right there?" I mean, I just recently listened to part of a podcast. Actually, really great podcast. Plugging these guys. The rest is history. Great podcast. I'll put the name right here. The rest is history podcast. Two British dudes just chatting up about all kinds of things in regards to history, and yeah, you get one of the most recent episodes I was listening to was about how the premier commentator of literature, kind of what we do at Camille's Harem, back in the 1700s, how he was like this really ugly man who really wanted to get married, and there was this older widow who had a beautiful daughter his same age, and he married the mom. He married the old widow because he was all like, "You find me attractive? Oh, bless you, lady. I will care and love for you for the rest of my life," which he did. I mean, kudos to him in a time of like great unfaithfulness. This man adored his wife. So good for him. But I mean, if it were me, I probably would feel really awkward doing that. So that's just me. All right. So we get from Stormcrow, so small town tropes, teen pregnancies, churches hiding a secret, corrupt cops, nerds, and jocks. TV count says gossipy neighbors and likelihood of something like a murder or an accident to go around. I love that we're getting violence and murder going on around here. Two of my best friends that live in a very small town community. I should let them know about how they expect murder, how they should expect murder. Guy says, obviously, I expect the characters to be very familiar with each other. I am more interested in how each character treats others. Then T account says, or wholesome friends to lovers and a slice of life kid adventures. That's Lars. So you're saying that Bergie has a chance? Yeah, as much of a chance as Jim Carrey had in Dumb and Dumber. which is still a chance. Okay, so we already have our expectations then of a small town. You guys have already laid this out. Now then, Deltarune in a way is kind of leading up to this because we do have a hometown conspiracy. We have the disappearance of December Holiday. Could be a murder, as far as anyone knows. There's dark secrets. So hey, Deltarune is so far playing into all of our expectations. And suddenly, one of the most expected in a hometown setting, the girl next door, is being played around with. The reason why Toby would do this is because it helps to subvert our expectations when we are already like, yeah, Deltarune's delivering on all the things we would expect from a little small rural town. But wait, suddenly it's not so much. Furthermore, by subverting this trope a little bit, he allows for the heroines, Noelle, Susie, and Des, to become active participants in the story. Instead of relying solely on Chris or the player, these girls take a more active role in readily shaping the overall story, which is good. Rather than treating Noelle, Susie, or Des as objects, we are encouraged to treat them as individuals. So that's why Toby's messing around with this particular trope, because it allows him ultimately to get you very interested in these characters. The girl next door immediately pulls your attention. Now that he has your attention, he wants to wow you. And I know where some of you are going with that particular thing. You have my attention. And you now have my, yeah, no, we're skipping that. All right. Let's start off first with Noelle Holiday, the poor deer in the headlights. No, so again, I made my initial Susie's the Girl Next Door video before chapters 3 and 4 dropped, and especially after playing chapter 4. Whether you play through the regular route or the Snowgrave route, and the Snowgrave route makes this even more clear, actually, Noelle Holiday is absolutely the girl next door. I mean, she quintessentially is. Think about this. Noelle is relatable. She is down to earth. She is friendly. She is literally the next door neighbor and lifelong friend to Chris Dreamer. So everything about her, from her attitude to her dress, look at that. Look at that good Christian girl setup. She is meant to be the obvious girl next door, sweet and simple and original as American pie, screaming all of that good hometown goodness and the obvious love interest. And the game even leans into that. She is obviously either a potential love interest for Susie or she's a potential love interest for Chris, depending on how you play the game. If you play regularly, obviously we get a lot of Noelle crushing on Susie. If you play the Snowgrave route, you are forcing a relationship between her and Chris. Now, that's just surface level stuff. But it becomes very clear even in chapter 1, however, if you're paying attention, if you play through the game entirely, that Noelle doesn't entirely fit your stereotypical girl next door setup because she's a lesbian. She is very clearly involved, very interested with Susie, and that's a-okay. The thing is that flies in the face of what like if you go back to the 1920s to the 1940s, and if you were to present Noelle Holiday, granted, you would have to make her a human because I think people will be all like, why would you ever want to follow this dear girl? You are kinky in all the wrong kinds of ways, my good sir. Put that off to the side. If you were to have Noelle Holiday as a character in any 1920s to 1940s movie, set in hometown, and everyone instantly be like, the girl next door, oh my gosh, she's supposed to end up with Chris. And then the story's something like, yeah, no, she's actually very interested in Susie. People would be all like, what is this abomination? What are you doing here? So Toby's already having some fun by taking the original concept of the trope and running with it and laughing, saying, ha ha ha, look at that. Noelle doesn't fit because, yeah, she's interested in Susie. Again, totally fine with that. And in fact, actually, Toby even kind of calls this out a little bit because Noelle still fits all of the parameters for the girl next door. She absolutely does. It doesn't matter if she's interested in Susie. She hits all the other criteria. So why can't gay people also have the whole girl next door or the guy next door experience? Why not? So just kind of some food for thought right there. That just because this particular trope exists the way it does doesn't mean that you have to be wed to the way that everyone has always utilized it. Noelle Holiday serves the original intent of the trope despite her sexuality. And so, there would be people who would absolutely disagree with me on that. But again, for the parameters of the girl next door, Noelle Holiday follows it to a T. And again, Toby runs with this even a little bit more by pointing it like we need to point out that Chris is personified as they them. And so already you have extra layers of LGBTQ whatnot to this, and that again, that's totally fine. This trope works perfectly, even for an LGBTQ plus story. A-okay. So Toby's having some fun with it. Hallelujah. Run along with it. The trope can be highly effective even when doing something that would not be expected from the 1920s to the 1940s. Because again, tropes do evolve and change, or their application also evolves and changes over time. Stormer says, another trope I forgot about. Good Christian boys and girls are sexually repressed animals. Looking at you, Azzy. In this case, they absolutely are animals. Hey. Guy, an anthropomorphic deer? How strange. A lesbian? Dear God. I am doing an adequate job of portraying. Am I doing an adequate job of portraying the 1920s Densons, Lars? As far as I'm making fun of them, yes. I think that if you were to actually drop like the characters of Deltarune and all the fan art on someone from the 1920s, the more appropriate reaction would be, there's something wrong with you, boy, as they then proceed to have like a heart attack, and someone then calls for everyone else to grab the torches and pitchforks before you get run out of town. And if you're in the city, everyone's going to be all like, there's a bar for you. Go there and never come out. Isa says, maybe I should do a girl next door trope in one of my stories, following the cliche exactly. Don't stray from the recipe. A good, modest, innocent Christian gal, and then put a twist on it later. Amen. I love that idea. That's absolutely fine. I'm right now actually kind of thinking about it. Do I use the girl? I have actually not used the girl next door trope yet in any one of my stories, but it would be fun to try. It would be fun to try in something. I just don't actually right now have a story where I would make that happen, because a lot of my stories are epic fantasy, and it feels silly to put the girl next door into an epic fantasy, which maybe that could be the challenge. I gotta think about that. So yeah, so there is the depiction of Noelle Holiday as your quintessential girl next door. The one thing I would have to stress, though, is that if you try to make her the girl next door for Chris, you are absolutely robbing both Chris and Des of their autonomy to force them into what the prophecy is requiring, and especially what Carol wants, which plays into the expectations of the hometown, where it's like, haha, yes, Carol's all like, who in this town is truly worthy of my beautiful Noelle? Chris, I know you're an absolutely weird kid, but you have potential in you. Chris is a character who it's hinted at that there's loads of potential in them. They are smart, they are talented, and despite the fact that they're really weird and like to pull pranks, they care. And in Hometown, where we get a hint of the rivalries between different families and factions, where we see that there's definitely a lot of dumb folk running around in Hometown. Let's just also be honest there. Chris, within a hometown setting, if Carol wants to keep her daughters in town, Chris Dreamer is absolutely the one kid thus far in Hometown who Carol would want to have paired off with her daughter because Chris ticks all of the boxes genuinely. Birdley is a poser. I love Birdley, but Birdley's a poser. Carol knows this. And so Carol would want the genuine kid, Chris, to get together with her beloved Noelle. Prophecy aside, the moment we add the prophecy to it and everything that's going on with Des, it becomes even more sinister. Guy says, I'm actually using this trope now that I'm thinking of it. The character in question is the antagonist, albeit not the villain. Ooh, interesting. TV Count says, what about a 1920s urban fantasy? Maybe set in Mexico? That would make more sense. You know what? An urban 20s, so a 1920s urban fantasy set in Mexico would be amazing. It would be so cool, especially if you dive deep into like the history of Mexico and its culture at that time. You could have so much fun with it. Like seriously, 1920s urban fantasy in Mexico is like ripe ground, or say fertile ground, for just some amazing creativity. I actually, now that I think about it, I really want to see that. This sounds so dang cool. Stormcrow says, Lars, now friends, we need to remember just because small towns look innocent and lovely, we look to stories like It by Stephen King to know the truth. Oh, It. We will not talk about certain things from It. Stares off into the distance disturbedly. You're being too charitable, my man. Carol is only settling for Chris L. Her true master plan was Desriel, but you know the story. Desriel was definitely where everything was supposed to go. I absolutely agree with you on that. Desriel was meant to be the union between the two powerhouse families, and we're going to get to that. So now it's time to talk about Susie, and this comes back around to what Guy was bringing up, like about how tropes just stay the same. And again, the soul of a trope stays very much the same, but elements of it do indeed evolve over time. Uh, so Susie remarkably fits this trope of the girl next door as well, but only as how the trope has evolved. Because nowadays, if you actually go looking for the trope of the girl next door used in modern media, you will not get the humble, pretty girl that you've known all this time, literally next door. You don't get that anymore. Instead, the trope has come to in these modern times of the 2020s, the girl next door trope has evolved to be that any girl in the town who you have spent some time around with or that you've known for a little while, who you start growing close to, who then starts beginning to take off the whole she's relatable, she's reliable, she's loyal, she's skilled, she's down to earth. You're like, oh, I've now come to realize that this girl within my community was who I always wanted. Hallelujah. And so in that case, even outsiders can become the girl next door. Not always, but the door has kind of been opened up to that. So Susie, even though she's not originally from Hometown, she's relatively new, can easily become the new girl next door. Because as you play through the game, Susie, as you get to know her, as she becomes redeemed from her villainous plot, her villainous character arc in chapter 1, she starts becoming a way more reliable, relatable, down to earth, pretty girl. Though I this needs to actually be stressed, with the way that the trope has evolved, the girl next door is now expected to also be sexy. Pretty is fine, but now there's also a chance for her to be sexy as well. Bear that in mind. As with how this trope has now evolved over time. So Susie moves into Hometown. She's been there now long enough that she has earned a reputation. People at least know of her. And as we get to see throughout the game, Chris is interested in Susie. so too is Noelle, but we're controlling Chris, so we get to see everything more through the lens of that particular experience, especially as you pay attention to what's happening within the game. And so we through Chris's eyes and through the experiences that we have controlling Chris, interacting with Susie, we get to know who Susie is. Again, Susie opens up. We find out that she plays video games like any good gamer girl, which allows her to connect with Berkeley. We see her being able to connect with Noelle. She knows about what's going on in town, and she keeps it real enough that I mean, even though she says, like, "Oh man, Chris, your family's damn weird," uh, she doesn't like she's not mocking about it. She just calls it out, but she's also respectful. Like at the end of chapter 4, when she sees Toriel in a very compromising state, drunk, dancing with Sans, when they were worried that she might have been kidnapped by the Roaring Knights, that whole experience really shakes Susie. And then rather than like throwing a fit about it or calling major attention to it, she excuses herself from the situation, but still hangs around to check in on Chris. She's keeping her eyes on the prize. This stuff allows Susie to become more relatable, to become more heroic, to be down to earth, to be loyal to her best friend Chris. And so because of that, Susie begins to tick off again, just like Noelle does. She begins to tick off all the qualities of the girl next door. And this, again, this is part of how the modern evolution of the trope has become that it's no longer the girl who's always been next door, but now any girl within the community can become the girl next door. And what Toby Fox is doing even more so with it is that he's taking the dangerous girl, the outsider. Remember, 1920s and 1940s. You shall not go see the foreign women. You shall not go to the women of the city. Thou shalt not consult. Thou shalt not interact with any woman from the outside. Dangerous, dangerous. Well, Susie is the dangerous one who has come into town, and the entire town treats her that way. But as you continue to play through the game, that begins to melt away. And we see a potential romance forming between her and Chris. Or you can also pursue potentially the romance between her and Noelle. And so suddenly, like it again, Toby's playing around with this trope, with the modern interpretation and application of the trope. So let's see here. Let me quickly catch up with some of the stuff you guys have been saying right here. If nothing else, it has a decent portrayal of the small town life. Everything else, yeah, we can move on. Sorga says, Desazi, dude, you can believe what my mom says. She said she arranged a marriage between me and you. Like, who the F is she to control my sex life? As he's naked next to her. Oh, the fanfic interaction. But yes, we could see that. If everybody tries to subvert a trope, following the trope normally becomes the trope subversion. Yes, yes, it does. Like in fact, like as a quick aside, like Girl in Dragon Guarded Castle, as much as I love the whole situation with Shrek, the interesting thing with like how Shrek plays on that trope is that it doesn't make fun of that the girl's in the Dragon Guarded Castle, but rather that the guy she didn't expect to save her is the one who saves her from the Dragon Guarded Castle. But yeah, if you were to actually have like a traditional girl in Dragon Guarded Castle get saved by Prince setup, if you were to just straight up play that out, people would not know what to do with it because it's a trope that's just been it's been twisted so much and subverted so often. I mean, even I'm doing that. Rather than having a regular princess, a human princess in a dragon guarded castle, I'm having a dragon princess in a dragon guarded castle getting saved by a bunch of humans. Guy says, I said, I like the recent Superman movie. LOL. Yeah. No, oh my gosh. The Superman to 2025. I wish that movie was even more popular because it's so good. It's so wholesome. It's a nice return to just the classic ideals of Superman. And I say that as someone who only knows like bare minimum of Superman. So maybe I'm not exactly quite the expert to comment on it, but like I remember leaving that movie just feeling happy and excited, wanting to see it again. And like I was pulling my family to come and see it with me the next time. I'm like, please, this is such a good movie. And yeah, it just plays it straight. It plays Superman totally straight as he was portrayed back in his golden days. Stormgirl says, Chris finds Susie attractive. Noelle finds Susie sexy. Birdley sees Susie as a gamer girl. One of these three is based. I mean, why not all of them? Susie is a trend. Well, I shall not say anymore. Uh, now then, one more thing to say before we move on to Des is that Noelle, because we get to actually see as the story progresses, Noelle takes a more active role in the things that are going on. Again, she is not just the object of desire; she's the one who's actually doing a lot of the desiring. And if you go through the Snowgrave route, you actually do begin to transform her more into an object than if you just play the story straight and allow her to be her own person. With Susie, Susie just continues to evolve into one of the main protagonists, into, I would argue, the true hero of the entire story. And so, even though she's the girl next door, she is a force to be reckoned with. She's the one who keeps changing the story as it goes along. And I absolutely just love that. Again, the trope, when played absolutely straight, usually objectifies the girl. And so, again, it's fantastic to see in Delta and how Toby Fox allows for these two girls so far to be their own characters, to have autonomy within their own stories. It really makes Deltarune feels a much more engaging game as a result. And then we get to Des Holiday. Now, this is where things get interesting because she's a character who we've only seen on screen once. Once. We've only seen her once in a flashback. But she's absolutely a character who has a massive impact on everything that's going on. And from what little we can glean of her immediate surroundings, of what she's left behind, it begins to paint her in a very interesting light. She's a complex character, or at least Toby Fox has so far presented her as a potentially very complex character. Guy says, I remember watching the first Shrek and believing that the damsel in the castle with the dragon trope was kind of mocked, with the implication that Fiona could have saved herself later and she put herself in the situation to meet her true love. Exactly. No, like the trope overall was being absolutely toyed around with overall, like when you think about it, and especially with the second movie then coming on in. Oh, I daycare or dragon guarded castle. You wouldn't understand. You're not a father. And we learn from her diary that she absolutely was doing this in order to ensure that Prince Charming would be the one to get her. And so it's like, oh, I guess you're not expecting Prince Charming. Well, yes, actually, was her response. So dang good. Oh, I love it. Now then, Des. Des as the girl next door. This is where I think Toby Fox is actually having some of his most fun with the trope, which it seems kind of silly because, again, she's a character who we've only seen once in flashback. The rest is all through references or through what little we can glean from combing through her room. Des Holiday is the girl next door, and she is a combination of what Noelle and Susie are. So let's start going into this right here because this is where it gets a wee bit interesting, and I'll actually pull up the game footage again, so that way we can jump on over to Des's room. All right. Yeah, getting on over here. Okay, so Des Holiday. She's literally the girl next door. So, I mean, okay, there we kind of have it. Hallelujah. We get to see from the flashbacks and from the descriptions of the different characters about what the relationships was once like between the Dreamers in the holidays, with Asgore and Rudy being best buds. They now live next door to each other in the same small town, and their kids are either the same age or roughly the same age, and they're always hanging out together and having a great time. It's a small town community. And as Stormcross already pointed out, like Desriel was basically the pairing that, especially a character like Carol, was very likely eyeing, and probably all of the adults in the families. We're looking at Des and Azrael would be an amazing powerhouse couple because Azrael he's the wonder child. He is the son of Asgore. He is the inheritor of the mantle of basically the hero of Hometown. And we get to see throughout chapters 1 and 2 just how much everyone else in Hometown loves Azrael. And they're still asking about what it will be like when he comes. When is he coming? Can we hang out with him? And so Azrael is the wonder child. Now, we get to see through the stuff in Des's room that while Des is obviously the apple of Carol's eye, she is a brash, rash, crude, rude, rough girl. But she was spending time with Azrael. We know, thanks to what is in her room, that Azrael was special to her. How do we know this? A girl does not keep a guy's retainer in his clothes if she's not interested in him in some kind of way, especially from middle school to high school. Look, I was in middle school. I was in high school. It happens. And that's absolutely one of those things. The trading of clothes and of personal items means that you are in a committed relationship. As silly as it sounds, it's just what people do. Toby Fox left that in there, not because it's funny, but because he's saying they were very likely dating or had dated. And if not that, then Des was very interested in Azrael, and maybe he was or wasn't picking up on the signals. In any case, we know that they played video games together, they hung out together, they went to the dark world together. They were exploring all kinds of mysteries together. Azrael and Des were close. That was the plan. These are the children of the two power couples. They are destined to be power couples, and hallelujah, at least one of them likes the other. Hopefully, it's probably mutual. Woohoo! And so, because of that, Des begins actually ticking off again what we would expect of the girl next door. She's from the hometown community. She's a childhood friend of Azrael's, and she ticks off these other things. We know that she would hit the reliable, the loyal, and everything because of just how far Chris is willing to go to save her. You do not flirt with destroying the universe for one person unless that person is worth it. And we know based off of how Chris feels about other people that Chris actually does care, even though they don't immediately express it or directly to us. Again, if you're paying attention, Chris cares about the people in Hometown. They care about people. They even care about Burgley. They can see the good in others, and they like that. So Des must therefore have ticked off those boxes. She is the girl next door, the quintessential girl next door, combined with the rude, the rough, the crude, like Susie. Holy cow. Des is the best of Noelle and Susie brought together. That's very much what Toby is implying as you pay attention to all of the details in the game. Now, Summer says, okay, people grow up talk time. People that leave pieces of clothing or dense water in each other's rooms are not just friends. Now, Stormcrow, please keep it down to PG-13. This is a PG-13 channel right here. But yes, I'm going to have to agree with you there. Des and Azrael were very much in a very close, very likely, because this is a small rural town community, very likely an intimate relationship. let's just be honest there. Also because this Chris, I'm going to be honest here with this, like a little grown up talk right here. Remember that Chris has the opportunity to peek into Azriel's room in chapter 2, but doesn't. Even if you say that you are, like, oh yes, we're gonna look into this. Chris doesn't want to have a look at it. But why? Chris and Azriel share the same room. Chris, like Chris sees this all the time, and when you choose not to, when you respect Chris's wishes to not look into Azriel's room or what Azriel looks up, it's not what's happening is not because it's like, oh, like I'm so anchored because Azriel got all the attention, got all the love, got all the trophies. Not that, because Chris loves their brother, genuinely so. Why would Chris respect specifically Azriel's privacy? And just to build off this a little more, let me actually get the exact wording. I don't have that file ready to go. Let me quickly comb through my gameplay footage. Let's see if I can get it right here. Okay, yeah, we're gonna mute that. Gotta pull this up a little ways. Okay, all right. So this should be about where we go. Okay, so here you got all the different rooms. Oh nope, I got too far. Okay, so yeah, so you can go through with the different rooms, that all through the different rooms, and everything. I'll let this play, and hopefully we get to that particular bit of footage. But it's very, but again, Chris, by respecting Azrael's privacy, is very likely respecting the fact that Chris knew that Azrael and Des were intimate with each other. Like that is something that we can easily infer. It's not outright stated, but it's very heavily implied. Again, if you're paying attention, which is one of the things I do appreciate about a game like Deltarune, that it doesn't just simply beat you over the head with some of the answers, but rather instead heavily implies it and persuades you, therefore, to pay more attention to the game. John Wells is here. What's happening? Well, we are right now talking about the trope of the girl next door, John. Now then, coming back again. Okay, so Des, and all that. So again, Des seems to be the merger of your quintessential girl next door, going all the way back to kind of like the 1920s and 1940s, and then also the merger of the more new interpretation of your kind of your rough and tumble kind of a gal, and everything. The nameplate reads Azrael's room. Peek inside. Haha, Chris, whose room is this? Huh? Your brother? Haha, man. You better hope I never met him. So we don't even get to see what's inside. Now then, nameplate reads Azrael. Peek inside. So if you choose no, you're respecting Azrael's privacy. You have the feeling you wouldn't learn anything. Now again, so it's kind of interesting. So I did get it wrong. You're not respecting exactly his privacy, but so I did. So sorry. I gave wrong information. I'll call myself out on that. But it's kind of interesting because again, Chris is not peeking in. I mean, why not? Is obviously it's Azrael's room. There's other times where Chris doesn't want to take anything from Azrael. Looking at it's like, yeah, Chris knew what's going on. Chris knows. Chris is just not sharing. Now John says, so we got Lana Lang, Mary Jane. What else can I say? You know what? So, you know what? Maybe I need to actually have read the original Spider-Man comics to truly get Mary Jane being the girl next door, because the movies never really bring that out. If I'm going to be totally honest, like the movies like set it up, and Peter Parker's like the girl next door. Maybe it's just because we jumped so quickly from high school into post high school life. Uh, I just saw like I personally have just always seen Mary Jane as more like the destined lover, or like love at first sight for Peter, is normally how I interpret his relationship with Mary Jane. So I feel like I need to go back and like I think I'd have to like go back and actually read the original comics to see if she actually really does fall into that girl next door trope. But that being said, like kudos, even like especially if that is that trope, that is a trope that's being used in the setting of New York City, so far away from rural America where the trope originated. So, uh, I mean, good use of good twist of the trope, or not necessarily twist, but good application of the trope. You can use the girl next door even in an urban setting. Let me quickly take a drink right here. John says, "Yeah, she was only the girl next door for like a handful of scenes in the first movie." Yeah, because and one of the reasons why I felt like the movie was trying to lean into that was because, again, the girl next door trope. When you hear it, you instantly are like, ah, the girl that the guy should go for. Got it, got it. And so you're immediately rooting for Peter because it's the girl next door. You want the protagonist to end up with a good girl, usually. Guy says environmental storytelling is what makes video games stand out. The Souls games are another good example of this. Oh yeah, absolutely love that in the Souls games, and also in many other games. Well, let's see here. Ones that through the ones I've played, Hollow Knight, Ori, and the Will of the Wisp has some very interesting stuff if you're paying attention to stuff that goes on in the background and what you can interact with. Uh, so yeah, absolutely. Video games excel at being able to tell the story through just the environment, especially because you get to interact with it if you wish, and it's not forced down your throat. Stormcrow says, Lars, actually, now that I think about it, in an unhealthy way, could Chris and Noel be using Susie as a December replacement? Oh, absolutely. And this is our like art. So Arts and I have actually talked about this repeatedly, how it seems as though for Noel specifically, Susie is more of that substitute for Des. I'm not so sure about Chris. And my reasoning for why I see Chris as respecting and liking Susie more for who she is, rather than the fact that she resembles Des in a lot of ways, is because we know that Chris is into dragons and has been for a long time. And so like that portents towards Dragon Gals was already there, was already a thing. So like it's already kind of bred into Chris as a character that they're going to like Susie because she just happens to also be their fetish. Yeah. Guy says comic iteration of MJ is sort of a subversion of the trope, being that she was very suggestive. Ah, yes, yes. Because remember, the original use of the girl next door trope is that she's not supposed to be sexy. And let's be honest, MJ's hot. And oh, we got this right here. Yes. So thank you. Thank you for the missionary message right there. Now then, let's let so now I brought that and was corrected by the game. Thank you, game, for correcting me. So Des as the girl next door. She ticks off all the boxes quintessentially, but she is also very much her own person from what we get, from what we can see. She was a rebel rouser. She did not fit in with the hometown setting. We also learned this from Noelle saying that Des was going to take her away from hometown, go into the big city, explore the world, which is so very different again from what you would expect of the girl next door. She's meant to be. She is like again the girl next door is meant to be that character who keeps you in your hometown. You're not supposed to leave your hometown because you've got the gal next door there for you. And so Des wants to leave. Oh, like that is really, really interesting. It shows that she was this autonomous character, even though she fit all the boxes for both the old and the new interpretation of the girl next door trope. She didn't fit it. She was very much her own person. And it's interesting then to realize that Azriel, who could have everything by staying in hometown, leaves hometown, I would argue in part because she's no longer there. When the girl next door is no longer there, why should you stay around? Now, there's a whole lot of story that we don't yet fully understand about what exactly happened in the immediate aftermath of Dessa's disappearance. And I think that because we're going to be in a chapter that's going to be more Asgore focused, that we have the opportunity to learn more about what happened when Des disappeared and what the immediate aftermath is. And that will probably give us more insights into how Azrael was feeling and Azrael's whole role in this. Because again, the girl next door is kind of meant to be the object of affection for the guy. And Azrael, who is the hero of hometown, seems to be the guy who we would see as the true hero of Deltarune, is not there. And that's just another interesting play that Toby's making on this particular trope. Because the guy in Dessa's life isn't there. Instead, we are playing this out through Chris. And it puts Chris kind of into an interesting situation now as well. When you start to think about what's going on, Chris is kind of caught in this triangle of girls next door between Noelle, Susie, and Des. Des is the girl next door that Chris is trying to save. Noelle is the girl next door that Chris is supposed to get into a relationship with in order to fulfill the prophecy and thereby save Des. But Susie is the girl next door that Chris is falling for and that Chris wants to be with, wants to help be the hero of the legend and break the prophecy. And that would in many ways actually save Noelle from the fate that is being bestowed upon her. But that would then come at the cost of Des, that there might not be a way of getting her back. And so you've got three girls next door, all of whom are the objects of desire, but very much their own individuals within the game, all of whom have worth, all of whom have an indelible mark on the game and how it plays out, on its narrative. And we're being posed with a situation in which we might have to lose one of them. Like everyone talks about Chris possibly losing their hand or their arm. Guys and gals, we're looking at maybe losing one of the gals next door. That's rough. That is very rough. That is what Toby's playing around with. He's using our knowledge and our expectations of these tropes, of the setting of hometown, of the girl next door, of everything that comes with that. And rather than setting up your traditional love story, has instead set up a quest to save them all, to become friends with them all, but one where no matter what we so far choose, so far as this game has revealed to us, we're going to lose one of them. That is a horrifying prospect. And because these tropes immediately evoke feelings for these characters and a connection with them, it makes the stakes so much more high and personal. That is, and my argument, that is the genius of Toby Fox's Deltarune. That it's not just a well-told story, which it is, but Toby knows what he's playing around with. He knows how certain tropes, certain settings, certain characters will immediately connect with people and evoke thoughts and feelings and connections, and he is manipulating that. A good storyteller knows how to get people to expose their heartstrings, so that way they can pluck them and play them like a harp, and get us to feel all different kinds of emotions throughout that story. That's what a good storyteller can do, and honestly, that's difficult because you have to be able, in that story, you have to be able to connect with people through the story that you're telling, on a level that will get them to emotionally resonate with your character and with its stories. And then you have to tell the story well enough that you can then move people's emotions because they've connected. Now, that is where tropes come in. Every story has tropes, but not every story uses its tropes to their fullest effect. when you know the trope that you're using, you know how to utilize it, whether to go run with it, flip it, subvert it, give a new application to it in order to make the most of it for your story. Now, with that all being said, I just got to ask, have I convinced you? Have I convinced you that Deltarune has indeed three girls next door? Des, Susie, and Noelle. Have I made a compelling argument? Please say yes or no in the chat, because I'd like to know. If I haven't convinced you, I'd like to know why. And honestly, that's not a call for me to be like, you're wrong. Allow me to convert you to my way of thinking. Not at all. But rather, this is important to have when we're talking literature. It's good to have, if you have them, opposing points of view. Omega says this should have been a theory video. I'm Omega. I absolutely agree with you. One of the reasons, though, why I decided to do this as a live stream is because I was like, you know what? I'm having a really hard time actually putting the script together. This feels almost like a stream of consciousness kind of an approach. And look at this. Over an hour later, right, we're finally kind of coming to the end of this. This was definitely like a stream of consciousness kind of a thing. But I agree with you. This would be fun to truly package up in a succinct theory video and throw that out there into the world. Jokes aside, it's a compelling argument. Well, thank you. Guy says, I mean, I sort of gathered the idea myself beforehand, but I'll just say for the sake of conversation that you did. Ha. Well, thank you. Thank you indeed. All right. Oh boy. Hold on a sec here. I'm oofala. So I gotta grab up something here real quirk. Yada yada yada. Okay, guys. Sorry, I'm very quickly. I'm not going to end the stream right here because there's more I want to say, but I do need to duck out for a brief moment. So let me grab up something. Let me grab up something that I can hopefully use. Because oh boy, having Mexican food for dinner. Oh, let me tell you something. Good Mexican food also means good reactions. So let me grab up something here from the video. Actually, you know what? I hate doing this, guys. I hate doing this, but I do have to bounce for a moment here. So we're going to. Again, I really do apologize for this, everyone. This is where it would be nice to have someone else I could quickly pass this off to, but no one from the harem jumped on to say howdy do. So, guys, I'm going to quickly play for you. Good old the Neo Spamton fight in the regular route. I gotta run for a quick moment. I'm gonna be right back. Enjoy the fights. Quickly, talk amongst yourselves. Coffee talk. Woo-wee. Okay. Oy. So that was embarrassing, but we're back now. Oh, so note to self for all future live streams: do not eat good Mexican food before doing a live stream because you then get the good Mexican food results. Chasm Creations, great to have you show up. Sorry that I was AFK right there for that. But yes, the fight with Spamton is indeed sick. Okay, so Stormer says, I guess final question for me then. Supposing that December is the night and we were able to save her, will she actually be able to have a normal life? I'm only seeing her that Cthulhu end, or seeing for her that Cthulhu end. So we don't fully know. And we are dealing with cosmic with cosmic horrors and the likes here in Deltarune. We don't really know what the long-term consequences are going to be. They'll very likely be there. Here's what I'm going to say. If we are able to save Des, again, remember that the goal of Deltarune, the whole purpose of the game, according to Toby Fox, is to become friends with everyone, which should then mean that we can become friends with December once again. And so that would then mean, if it is indeed possible to save her, that there is a potential happy ending there, which is kind of hard to see because of everything that is presented to us. Just remember, though, the conversation between Susie and Gerson during their fight is that Susie says that she just wants a good happy ending, or she wants the good times to just continue rolling on, and Gerson is in full support of that. So like that's just that's something to think about. Think about there, that in theory then a totally happy ending is indeed possible. We just don't yet know how that will turn out. Now, I've got some crazy theories about how that could turn out, but that is like going way into the realms of fan fiction, just based off of minute information that's been presented to us. So, yeah, like we're not yet supposed to really know how or if even possible. But given what Toby Fox has told us is the purpose of the whole game, in theory, it should be. Okay, so, oh man, sorry about that again. So, continuing on. Hey, good drink of water right there. Okay, so for all of us, just remember this: tropes have meaning. Tropes have implicit meaning in them, because I mean these things have been utilized so many times that, again, even if people don't immediately recognize them or their names, people know them. And the moment that they begin to realize, oh wait, I've seen something like this before, I've heard this before, I've read this before, they immediately have connections with that, and they have expectations that go along with them. So every trope conveys an idea and an expectation for the story. It is your job as the author to understand the tropes you intentionally use and how you will employ them with your story. If you're able to comprehend and utilize that, it actually gives you way more control over how these tropes will play a part in your story, and your story is not then ruled by your tropes, but rather you're in control of your own story. Chasm Creation says, I've been thinking about the possibility of Chris remembering the timelines and being forced into an endless loop of regaining hope only to lose it again once the game is done and we replay it. That is very possibly a case. I mean, it's already kind of laid out in, like, if you get defeated, if you get a game over, like you're basically being told in an Undertale way to continue on. That like this timeline must continue. And even though the timeline has kind of come to an end, the timeline is reset so you can continue to go forward. Guy says a good old trope can still be effective if presented effectively, and that goes for all tropes. Like I describe tropes often as cogs in a clock. All old school clocks need cogs, but it's how you put the cogs together that makes the clock run effectively, or even run at all. If you use the wrong cogs or put them in the wrong place, then the clock can't function. And it's the same thing with your stories. You can use just about any trope that you want within your stories, but you have to know how to use them in a way that it complements what you wish to do with the story. If a trope isn't working for your story, it shouldn't be in there because it will be like a bad gear in the clockwork and just mess everything up. So some good food for thought. Actually, you know what? Kind of I so kind of running with that idea a little bit, and and we can actually then take this. So I said put a pin in the whole Forrest Gump conversation. Let's actually use this as a chance to kind of talk about that a little bit. So first of all, I've recently been watching some movies about Shad Brooks from Shadiversity, and I think by now people are just kind of like hitting against low fruit. Like Shad, whether you love him or hate him, has unfortunately really suffered a real fall from grace, even with his own community. And chasing the brownie points like he did for a while didn't pay off for him in the end. Now then, I did a review. Like a lot of people love to tear into, again, because he's low hanging fruit, it's easy to tear into Shad Brooks. I did a review for his book, Shadow the Conqueror. I even backed his Kickstarter for the book. So I actually have the really neat looking leather bound version of his book because I backed it. I really wanted to back a content creator that I really liked at the time. And I was interested to see what his story would be. I then read his story and I was like, oh, okay. And in terms of like, again, an old trope can still be effective if presented effectively. And the same goes for really any kind of trope. One of the things that really, really derails Shadow of the Conqueror, like there's many things that unfortunately hold the book back from being the best it could be. But one of the things that Shad is really, just really stuck with is certain character archetypes. Archetypes are good for framing your character. The important thing is this is not to be beholden to the archetype, but rather to get to know your character as a person and then allow that person to make choices according to what you throw at them as the plot progresses, allowing them to make choices that cause them to evolve or to devolve according to what they choose, and to be autonomous enough that they play a role in pushing the plot forward, because the story lives or dies by its characters. Shad basically keeps all the characters in the same state that they are by the beginning of the book. No one really changes because he's wedded to a paragonal idea of who they are. Paragons are characters who don't really change. And an unchangeable character can be interesting, but they then need to be the ones that evoke change in everyone else. Think Ichigo from Bleach, or Luffy from One Piece, or Naruto from Naruto. You know, I've got the anime named after me. In those three, in the original big three, those characters can very easily be described as the unchanging protagonist. They don't really have much of character arcs. Though maybe you could argue that Naruto does over the overall scope of the story, but Luffy and Ichigo are very much always who they've always been. And it's the effect that they have on others because they are the best that they themselves could be, that they affect change in others for the best. And so you can write the unchanging protagonist and still have a really good story. But the problem is that Shad doesn't give character development to his characters. And one of the places that he unfortunately blew it is when there's actually got to be like a good official name for this particular trope, and it's one that's not often used, but his main character in the story, Dalen the Conqueror, has a moment where he is confronted with his sins. He's given an atonement moment, and Shad has it where Dalen dies because he cannot handle the weight and consequences of his sins. and Shad being a Christian and really leaning into that. Like, I see where he's coming from. He's basically kind of having Dalen experience the atonement of Jesus Christ, with no Jesus Christ being in the equation. But effectively, like, the reason why Jesus could do is because he's a perfect human being and a god. Dalen experiences effectively an atonement moment and dies because he cannot handle his own wickedness. That is, if you think about it, thought provoking. The problem is that Dalen doesn't change because of that, and he just immediately comes back to life, setting him up as the savior rather than as a character who needs saving. And because he's a horrible human being who does not change, that means that it's like, wait a second, you literally gave like fantasy Stalin. You gave fantasy Stalin a Jesus Christ moment and passed him off as Jesus Christ without any sort of character development. That's bad. That's really bad. Now then, I'm going to contrast that with what I've done with one of my characters in my own story. So in my series, The Legend of the Ten Lords, there's one character who is the Cheap Weezer, or World Eater, sometimes also called the Virus. He has lots of different names that people refer to him as. He's a character who, much like Dalen, has a very dark background, and he's not necessarily the best person. As you get to the fourth book in the series, it starts becoming more clear there's something complex going on here. He wants redemption. This character wants to be redeemed. And he's trying to get there. But one of the big enemies within the series is trying to tell this character who is trying to get better that you can't. You can't get better. And he's confronted with that dark possibility. And the possibility itself creates a moment of guilt that makes him weak and vulnerable to the point where he can be grievously wounded through magic because he's a survivor. The Cheap Weezer is a survivor. This guy literally like gets melted, he gets his head cut off, he gets blown away, and he still just keeps coming back because he's able to imagine himself as always being able to regenerate until he's confronted with his own guilt. And that's something that, as I go into the later books, it's something that I really need to build up on in order to show his weakness and also his potential to change and to become a better person. And so actually reading Shadow of the Conqueror has given me the chance to see this is what I need to avoid. Do not give the Cheap Weezer, World Eater, a Jesus Christ moment of atonement like what Shad did for Dalen, because it doesn't work. He's not meant to be Jesus. He's his own person who is nowhere near as good as the Christ, and so therefore should not be compared to him, but rather have his own journey. And it's good for him to be confronted by the consequences of his own earlier actions, so that way he can choose, I want to be better, and then try to be better. And so like the trope of atonement is, when it's used well, is beautiful, but it needs to mean something. You need to see character development. Otherwise, why is that trope in there? It does not work. And that is why Dalen the Conqueror becomes a flippin' Mary Sue. And if you've watched any of Shad's literary critique videos, he hates Mary Sue's, and yet he wrote one. Golly. Oh, oh boy. So as Stevie Count says right here, that very problematic story. I think it tried to justify the horrible things he did as okay because some of those women got babies out of it. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the ending. Yeah. No, that was. I remember when I got to that part of reading, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! Say what? What?" I was like, "Shad, you and I need to have a conversation. This is not okay." Guy says, I'll said it once, I'll say it again. You can have a villainous protagonist, but the story has to acknowledge the protagonist is a villain without insisting on their virtue. Yes, Yes, absolutely. You can have a villain as a protagonist, and you need to be able and do them like what Black Hat does or what Villainous does. The show Villainous, the show Villainous is unapologetic about how all of the main characters are villains. They're bad guys, varying levels of bad guys, but they're all bad guys. And because the show accepts that and rolls with it, they are far, far more fun because you know you're watching villains doing villainous things. And so it's a great time. And you then root for them when they have moments of like self actualization, self realization, and like Dr. Flug overcoming his past with Miss Heed is just amazing. He's still a villain, but now he's a villain who's like, I don't need to be hung up on the past, and I don't need to have a toxic person like you in my life. Is just chef's kiss. Mwah. Dr. Flug, you are amazing. And again, he's still a villain, but he's a villain who goes through a character arc and an experience that is extremely relatable to loads of people. And it's great to see him come out on the better end of it because he learns what is really important and that you should not wait for someone to love you who doesn't love themselves. Poetry, peak cinema. Tia Gown says it's essentially international when the character, or essentially intentional when the character chooses to change. Not a Mary Sue, more of a personal power fantasy. Yes. Well, it is a Mary Sue. Dalen's absolutely a Mary Sue who Shad basically lives through in order to enjoy a power fantasy. And so it becomes even like Mary Sue's and power fantasies these days almost go hand in hand together. It's just, blah. Yeah. So, what other tropes have you seen evolved or uniquely applied? This allows us to now come back again to Forrest Gump. Again, using the girl next door with Jenny. So, Jenny is the girl next door. Jenny's the cute girl who is all like, you talk funny, who is on Forrest's side, who supports Forrest, and wants the absolute best for him. And it's clear that Forrest falls in love with her. But after high school, they go their separate ways. In part because Jenny is trying to escape her abusive father, and Forrest because well, he's going wherever the wind takes him. He doesn't really know what he's going to do with life. He's just kind of going. So he goes to college while Jenny gets involved with drugs and the hippie movement. He goes to war while she becomes anti-war. He goes on to be part of a successful business when she starts basically losing all hope. She becomes this wrecked individual. When Forrest and Jenny reunite, each time they reunite, it's clear that Jenny is not living her best life. Well, Forrest, unbeknownst to himself, is living his best life. He's just going wherever the wind takes him, trying to just be his best, do his best, as his mama taught him. And so, in a way, if we actually want to think about this, Forrest Gump is the girl next door. Jenny is not down to earth. She's not relatable. She's not loyal. She's not the one that everyone says you would be the luckiest man if you could have her. Jenny is not that person. But Forrest Gump is down to earth. He's relatable. He's loyal. He's everything. He's the package. Like his slowness aside, like his slowness of mind aside, he's the perfect man. Like the only man who's more perfect in fiction is Seuss from Gravity Falls. Yeah, Gravity Falls is the world's most perfect man. But yeah, now that's a subversion. Forrest Gump is the guy next door or the girl next door. Forrest Gump fits the trope, and it's Jenny who has to learn through all of her adventures that was always the case, and it comes back to them being back at home, and like the story ends with Forrest being back in his hometown, still loving Jenny, taking care of their kid, and just trying to continue to live and do right by her and her memory and everyone else. It's just absolutely beautiful. Forrest Gump is such an interesting movie. It really, really is. And I gotta go back and rewatch it again because it's been a while. Yeah, guy, I agree. I hate autocorrect. Actually, so people are like, "Oh, ducking autocorrect," because autocorrect these days has gotten so bad with some of the things that I write these days. Whenever autocorrect comes to screw me over, this is what I've begun to write in response. Ducking audio carrot. Because yeah, there's your autocorrect right there. Taking your curse on autocorrect and transforming it to a ducking audio carrot. So yeah, so that kind of wraps up right there the whole talk of the girl next door and the different uses of that particular trope. Again, I just love what Toby Fox is doing with the tropes he's been playing around with in Deltarune, and yeah, just realizing Des is the perfect girl next door. She is a combination of both the old and the new interpretations of the trope. Hallelujah! And we haven't even seen her except for one brief flashback. Uh, but so thinking about this, what other kinds of tropes have you all come across that you're like, you know what? That was an interesting application, or it was a unique evolution of the trope. And like we were earlier bringing up Shrek, how Shrek kind of mocks the whole idea of the princess in the dragon guarded castle, everything from Donkey seducing seducing the dragon to Princess Fiona being in the castle in order to meet Prince Charming, to Shrek being the one to save her, and he's an ogre. Like obviously the writers of Shrek were just having an absolute blast tearing into that trope, and yet you can still have a whole lot of fun with it. There was a little animatic a little cartoon I came across recently of a princess who again chooses to be in a dragon guarded castle in order to meet her Prince Charming. It's basically like her last like test to see if any man is worthy of her. And this dragon is just like, I am here to fight and die gloriously. It's so over the top. But it's just is good. And then, of course, what I'm going to do with Whitefire by having a dragon princess in a dragon guard castle. So, aside from that, what kinds of tropes have you guys seen uniquely used? So, No Country for Old Men subverts the badass hero going up against the odds trope by making the protagonist go up against an unwinnable position that leads to his downfall. Yeah, yeah. So right there, kind of taking again your expectations. You've got the hero. You expect the hero to come out on top. No Country for Old Men. That is a movie that is going to take again your expectations and break them. It is a harrowing story of like, oh, in a world like this, do you really like realistically, do you have good guys? Does anyone win? TV account. I am I like how I am Frank Elda subverts meta narrative of being the writer of your own destiny and the term ghostwriter. I don't know that one. I am Frank Elda. I don't think I've heard that one TV account. Guy, I love depressing stories. LOL. You know what? Back in the day, I would have been right there with you, but I think maybe just because, like, you know what? I actually deal with depression. I'm going to avoid depressing stories from now on, or at least to the best of my ability. But yes, there are some movies that and books that have that great like hollowness to it. You're like, oh boy, oh that hits differently. Like oh crud, oh fiddlesticks. What is the name of that movie? There's a movie I saw a little while back that also takes place in Texas about about this guy from New York City who goes to the hometown of a girl that he once hooked up with and finds out that she's dead. And he starts investigating her death and comes to find out that this town has been basically taken over by drugs. And it's such a depressing, harrowing story because everyone in the town knows what's wrong, everyone knows who done it, and no one wants to change. They've just all come to accept that this is the way life is, and they hate that these damn city slickers are coming in here and trying to tell us how to live. And he's all like, "You guys are in a dying community. Why will you not change?" And they're all like, "Well, you just don't understand. Well, bless your heart, you just don't understand our ways." And he's like, "Well, yeah, you know what? Bless your heart." It's just that's kind of the way the movie ends. It's just this shouting match in the parking lot after people have died, and you're just like, oh boy, that like that. And it's like, yep, yep. Uh, if you want to actually change the dark underbelly of any society or country, you have to have people willing to change. And that is a very hard thing to effectuate. And that movie calls it out, which is why it's depressing and harrowing. Man, does it hit hard. Uh, Stronger says, looking at Destriel individually, realistically, if Gaster didn't Gaster, what kind of life do you see them having? I have a feeling Asgore Toriel are a test run of their future. I would say this. I would say that very likely because again, the characters are who they are. Des would have left hometown. The question is, would Azrael have followed, and would that have meant that they could have stayed together? People who meet up in high school, who date in high school, them staying together beyond high school, that goes against all the odds. I do know of two couples. Let me think about this here. I take that back. I know of three couples who were together in high school, right after high school, got married after high school, and just continued to stay together. Two of which I'm like, those were the absolute true love stories. Holy cow! They broke all the odds, and they went on to have amazing families and everything, and everyone loves them. The third couple in question that I can think of, that was an example of no, no, you should not say no. You are both toxic individuals. No, it felt almost like Wuthering Heights, kind of like they're just bad for everyone, and everyone that was in their lives back in the day no longer is. Like everyone's just like, no, I'm not having any of this. You like maybe you two deserve each other, but this is not a happy situation. So I think that if realistically, if the two really did like each other and they were able to keep that romance between them going post high school, minus Gaster shenaniganery and the Deltarune prophecy, I think that ultimately they would have stayed in hometown, and you would have had Azrael eventually becoming not necessarily more like Des, but not being his parents, but eventually discovering himself, whoever that is. And they would be the odd powerhouse couple of hometown and would likely have affected a lot of change in the community, uh, because Des definitely seems like the unrepentant rebel, and unrepentant rebels very rarely suddenly change their stripes and decide to conform. Guy says, I do adore happy stories. Don't get me wrong. I just have a preference. Oh yeah, we know we all got a preference for our stories. That's absolutely fine. Deacon says you should definitely watch it as a love letter to creating and storytelling in general. Uh, bump it up, so Deacon says it was a stop motion movie where the writer becomes a book. Okay, interesting. I gotta look this up. Hold on a sec here. Yet, 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 da, 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 da. I am Frank Elda. Oh, this is a rather new thing. I have not heard of this. Oh, and that would explain it because okay, yes, it is Mexican stop motion. So yeah, no, United States being what it is right now, with the suppression of anything coming in from the outside of an anime, which even anime is now being legislated against in certain states. Uh, yeah, I hadn't heard about this, but thank you for the recommendation here. In 1866 in Montevideo, Mexico. All right, interesting. Oh, thank you for the recommendation. I'll see if I can check that out. But Sterner says, don't forget dear goat babies. The grandma wars the right to babysit were brutal and cruel. Yes, but it also means that the parents get a break. Oh, it will premiere in international on Netflix. Oh, sweet! I'll check that out when it comes out on Netflix. Again, thank you for the recommendation, TV count. Ah. Uh, Guy says my whole writing catalog is a love letter to tragedies. You know, there was a time where I read a little bit more of tragedies, but then I'm like, I gotta get out of this. This is supposed to be into a doom spiral. Um, yeah. It's also one of the reasons why I don't usually get into revenge stories, except for the game is murder. Like the game, or it's actually games are murder to me, but I initially can't found it under Cage Level Up, and then the game is murder. But games are murder to me is a phenomenal revenge story, and mostly because like it's not even like I must get revenge against these other characters. In fact, actually, like revenge is had many different times throughout the story, but rather you get to see how revenge shapes characters, how it slowly begins to corrupt and change them. And it has all of these different like what if scenarios where you get to see the main character, where if he actually like went true on like became the villain that he could very easily even justifiably be, how it would absolutely change everything. Or if he never, or like if after his first round of revenge he then never went for it again, and then you just see him as like the happiest guy on earth. But no, the story's like, no, we're going to follow you as you just continue to get to like keep getting pulled deeper and deeper into this world as revenge after revenge after revenge slowly changes you into a different person. It's quite remarkable. Omega says to TV account, I see. I remember catching videos about it on Instagram, and weirdly enough, how I caught the series Divius, another stop motion project by Dolly Motion. Oh, that's cool. Guy says, I get it. It can be too exhausting. That's why I watch Ghibli movies after. Studio Ghibli movies, so cleansing, so healing. Also, I love coming across like manga that are also like super healing. The Fragrant Flowers Bloom with Dignity is just such a beautiful Romeo and Juliet story, without any of the murder and weirdness and like what were you thinking kind of stuff going into it. It's such a good story. Also, Tsumiki Ogami's Ordinary Life, that is such a beautiful story of a boy who realized that he actually doesn't know himself, and so he requests and is granted permission to transfer to another high school, and ends up being in a high school with a bunch of monsters. And he intentionally did that because he was hoping to learn from that experience how to be himself. And he becomes best friends with a werewolf girl. And it's just, it's just that story is so dang healing. And and a couple of others are just so good to go to. I'm like, I'm having a bad day. I'm gonna read this and feel happy now. Because it's just so much sweetness and goodness, and all the characters are just great. Guys, as then again, Ghibli does have great with the Fireflies. Oh yes, I've actually when the writing group when we went to Japan, we went to the museum at Nagas at not Nagasaki. We went to the museum at Hiroshima. Right. Uh, yeah, we went to the yeah, it was the museum at Hiroshima, and man, holy cow, that was something. Grave of the Fireflies, and even some of the stuff they actually see and stuff like Godzilla minus one, it does not do it justice. Just the absolute holocaust of horror initiated in one insane, inhumane moment. Holy cow! And I remember having these conversations with like as just a historical aside, when I was teaching and I was teaching history. I remember like having some of these conversations with students of like, yeah, the dropping of the nuke is just absolutely horrible. There's justifications for it, but at the same time, it's so bad that like you find yourself in a weird catch 22 situation. There are those who try to argue that no, that like there was never any need for the nukes. Japan was going to surrender no matter what. But that argument is largely based on a lot of what ifs that might have happened. But because they're what ifs, and because we never know what would ever happen if those what if scenarios actually played out, we can't really know. And so it is this horrible catch 22. Do you sacrifice hundreds of thousands to even millions of lives on both sides to invade the home islands and suppress them the old school way and allow Russia in the meantime to invade Japan from the north and subjugate Japan to become another vassal state like what they were doing to Eastern Europe? Or do you do something that you don't know what it's going to do? You just know it goes boom and unleashes just sheer inhumane devastation in a flash. That's the kind of question that that honestly no sane person wants to find themselves having to have to answer that and then have that answer acted upon. Like that's that something to think about. Whew, that was deep. That was heavy right there. Hey, so let's see here, man. It's a little after 9 where I'm at. I still need to do things to get ready for tomorrow. So we should. So I should wrap up this live stream here pretty soon. Um, you know, just thinking though, just to wrap up the whole idea of like knowing tropes, how you utilize them, and everything. Uh, so if you missed my live playthrough of the Liar Princess and the Blind Prince. I still have not played my way through the game. I'll continue to do that when I can. But what I really like is how that game has a fantasy scenario that feels that you're like okay, so you got the prince who goes into the Forbidden Forest. He knows he's not supposed to be there. He suffers consequences. Oh, you have this wolf who transforms herself into a princess in a very Little Mermaid kind of a way, giving up her voice to get what she wants. And now she's going to lead the prince, help the prince, and fall in love with the prince. Like you're like, oh yay, fairy tale. The thing is that where the twist comes, where the fun twist comes, is that the one who wounded the prince is the wolf, and that it's the big bad wolf who becomes the lying princess in order to help save the prince. And that's just a really fun twist to the whole thing. That I think is neat. Like it takes a setup that you feel is incredibly familiar, but then goes in a different direction with it. Like it's fun to see stuff like that. Ime says Nausicaa, Princess Mononoke, and Castle in the Sky are good watches. If you want action, though, for the former, you should read the manga. For HWO, for HWO, where the story goes from the end. Okay. And then guy says the only thing we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. I think this was Hegel. I don't remember. You know, recently I heard one historian say whoever says that history rhymes what was lying, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but as another from one historian to the other, you're wrong about that. History rhymes, but not in the way that it repeats. When people say that history repeats, history doesn't repeat, but history follows patterns. And the way that I described it to my students was think of a screw. If you have a screw and you start twisting the screw, it feels like you're moving. The question is, are you moving up or are you moving down? Because along the length of a screw, it's it's the same twist and turn, it's the same pattern, but you're not in the same place of the screw. So the question is, are people moving up? Is were things getting better for a nation, for society, for the world, or does it get worse? History, though, always has a pattern that it follows based on people's choices. So it does rhyme, but it never repeats. Okay, so I mean, it says house. So Nausicaa and Prince Mononoke and House on the Sky are good watches. If you want action, though, for the former, you should read the manga for how the story goes from the end. Very interesting. I didn't know that there was a manga to follow up on Castle in the Sky. Castle in the Sky, though, is great fun. I'd also say for this, in terms of action, uh, Spirited Away also has a lot of good action. Oh man, Nausicaa. I so wish that we could have a story set in the world of Nausicaa that's just good steampunk adventure stuff. Because Nausicaa definitely delves more into the environmentalist story and theme, which that's totally fine. That's a story that Miyazaki wanted to tell. But man, I love the world building in Nausicaa. So is Nausicaa that a manga? Okay, yeah, because like the world building of Nausicaa is amazing. The factions, the kingdoms, everything like that involved. I want more. I want a true steampunk adventure story in the world of Nausicaa because it's so dang good. um, and guy says, anyway, I'm going to go now, sir. Thanks for the time. Until next time. Yeah, thank you very much for being here, guy. Anyway, it says it goes in a very different direction than the ending. Oh, really? Now that's something. That'd be worth checking it out. Just got to get my hands on that manga somehow. I must get this manga. But how? I mean, in what way? All right. So I think with all that being said, everyone, we'll wrap it on up there. I hope to get out a new writing lesson video here real soon. With the one that was requested a couple months back on how to know when to end a scene and how to end it. So I'm hoping to get that together and hopefully deliver some good advice. It'll be the kind of advice where I fear some people are going to be like, but you're not telling me exactly how to, and I'll get into why that is in the video. But have I considered sailing the scanning seas? Yar, possibly, possibly. We'll see. But yeah, so I'm going to get that writing advice video done, and then the one after that will be how to write a fight, and not necessarily like a battle. Like I've got swords versus guns and magic duels, but like arguments. How do you write a fight, a verbal fight, maybe even a physical fisticuffs fight, but one that isn't spectacular, but one that definitely delves more into the emotional. So those are the two writing advice videos to look forward to, and yeah, uh, so that's right now, I think, what is mostly on the docket. Also, we've got the Amazing Digital Circus episode 8 coming out next Friday. So you can expect that our live stream will be discussing that when we had the chance to see it. So lots to get into, lots to enjoy. And with all that being said, everyone, thank you so much for being here for this live stream. Ooh, and if you want to, you can also check out whenever I get around to doing the next playthrough for the Liar Princess and the Blind Prince. With all that being said, everyone, thank you so much for being here. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.